Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadu wa nasalli ala Rasul Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this series, Journey of Fiqh. Alhamdulillah, we are continuing the explanation regarding or the outline of the Hanbali school, the school of Fiqh of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. InshaAllah, in the next sessions afterwards, more explanation about fiqh in general, about explanation about madhabs, the rules for following madhab, what is praiseworthy in following madhab, what is not praiseworthy, and so forth. Now, we're just finishing off today the fourth madhab, inshallah, which is the Hanbali school. So remember that last week we touched upon the early stage of the madhab. So ta'sis, which is the foundational stage, which is the Imam himself. Then you have the transmission of the madhab, which is the students of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. 6 were noted students whose masail have been published, the masail that they've learned from Imam Ahmad, or his fatwas or questions, answers to questions that he gave to them. So there Imam Abu Dawood, the famous Imam hadith scholar, one of the 6 famous hadith imams whose collections are taught throughout the madaris and considered one of the most authentic hadith collections. Salih and Abdullah, the 2 sons of Imam Ahmad, Al-Kawsaj, Ibn Hani and Harb Kirmani. They're known as the Ashabul Masail, and this is these are the people responsible for transmission, because they took from the Imam and they recorded it and they transmitted the school or the views of Imam Ahmad. The third stage is the Jama', or the collecting and gathering of the school. This honor went to Imam al-Khallal rahimullah, who went and collected all the fatawat from all the students of Imam Ahmad Hanbal rahimullah, and collected an encyclopedic work called Al-Jami'. Unfortunately, most of the book is lost to history, but he basically set up the next stage of ulama. It was lost in later era, but alhamdulillah, by that time the madhab, the school, was preserved, and all those views were recorded and transmitted into other books. In the recent era, Shaykh al-Ustaz Khalid Rabbat, he compiled with a team of researchers all the ulum. He created a new jami', a new collection from all those other books, and in about 20 volumes collected a knowledge in every place where Imam Ahmad gave a view, whether it be hadith or aqidah or akhlaq, whatever it is. His views have been recorded in 20 volumes. So it's an amazing book of an alim of the current era. Then came the era of Mukhtasar, of Imam al-Khiraqi rahimahullah, who compacted the mazhab into a teachable book. So encyclopedic works are good for references, but you can't teach from them new students. So Imam al-Khiraqi compiled this Mukhtasar, a compact primer for teaching students called Mukhtasar Khiraqi. And then the last stage is taqeed, or defining the madhab or restricting the madhab to exactly what Imam Ahmad meant. So because if people start taking wrong interpretation, making their own interpretation, he spelled out exactly what Imam Ahmad, according to Imam Ahmad's students, how they understood it. So before that's lost. So he has contributed the madhab in making sure, spelling out the madhab exactly what the Imam's statements. When the Imam says, I dislike something, what did he intend by that? Like in terms of fiqh and usul of fiqh, what was the Imam's statements? What did they mean? Because he weighed and measured the words, and they knew exactly what he intended when he made a certain statement. So this is the foundational stage, the key figures of the early stage of the madhab. The second stage of the madhab, which we sort of touched upon last week, is the stage of elaboration and refinement of the madhab. And this year is from 403 Hijri till 885 after Hijrah. So the first figure in this stage is Al-Qadi Abi Ya'la. In the madhab, whenever it says Qala al-Qadi, the judge has said. Qadi is of course a judge, because he was a Qadi, he was a judge in that time. Whenever the Hanbalis say the judge has said in their books, it's referring to Qadi Abi Ya'la rahimahullah. He wrote many books in usul and elaborated on the madhab in detail. And he had a student named Abu Khattab, not mentioned in the slide, but he also wrote on usul and qawaid as well. The next key figure, if not in the middle era of the madhab, and he has an impact on the madhab until now. And a very important figure, the Muwaffaquddin ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi rahimahullah. So al-Muwaffaq ibn Qudama, he wrote many books on usul and on masail. So he wrote al-Umda, which is the way he wrote a whole syllabus and books for the syllabus at different stages, so 4 stages. So the first book is Umda, which is basically what the final word of the school is, what the fatwa is upon, what we practice, what the Hanbalis practice. So it's the sort of the final word. Not much discussion is there about daleels, about the proofs, the sources of the masail. A student, when he studies in a madrasa, when he studies Islamic sciences, he has to study according to his level. This is how the whole world works. Every science, even Islamic sciences, work like that as well. You start with grade 1, 2, 3 in maths, in different subjects. Same with fiqh. You can't jump to the 6-year textbook and try to do comparative fiqh of different masail with different madahib and schools when you don't even have the basics right. First thing is, when you enter fiqh, you have to first learn so that you can practice your own personal deen properly. So you get the basics, the ABCs right. So that's the first book, is Umda. Then you read Muqni'. Within it, this is further elaboration of the different viewpoint, because in the Madhab, from Imam Ahmad, there are different views on the same issue. And the Imams who are experts, they know which is the preferred view or the final word of the school upon which fatwa is given. But this book opens up the Madhab a little bit for discussion in terms of multiple views, 2 views or more, on the issue that are attributed to Imam Ahmad Hanbal rahimahullah. Then you have the book Al-Kafi, and Kafi, of course, extended even more further within the school still, varying views and arguments and counter-arguments, and the proofs goes more detail into the hadith, ayat, sayings of Sahaba, fatwa of Sahaba, and so forth. And then you have the and this book Al-Kafi, the 3rd level book. Alhamdulillah, I had Kitab al-Ibadat. I had the opportunity to study with my late father, Shaykh Saeed rahimahullah. The 4th stage is Al-Mughni. And Mughni is, I mentioned the Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi, which was the book that's considered the first sort of textbook of the madhab. So Mughni is a commentary of that book, but within its commentary, and he studied that book with Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani rahmatullah alayhi, who's his ustaz, and he commented in the book, but what he brought in that madhab, in that book, was the view of the madhab, the differences within the madhab, and also all the madahib of all the imam. When he was asked, why did you bring the views of all the, even outside the 4 madhabs, like Imam Awza'i and Hassan Basri, the imams, the schools that we mentioned earlier that are no longer, they extinct schools as a school, but their views do exist in books. So why did he said for the barakah, for the blessings? Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi rahmullah, everybody after this stage is in the orbit, caught in the orbit of Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, and commentary after commentary after commentary is done on until his time. The most important book in the madhab was Al-Mukhtasar al-Khiraqi. When Imam Qudama wrote his book Al-Muqni', that became the primary book textbook, and it's still taught until now. Muqni' became, because you can tell the importance of a book in a school, that one is that you do away, or the books before it become less important, because what's in those books is already in this book. And also you see the importance, how the ulama treat it in terms of commentaries and writing footnotes on it, and they give it importance as a syllabus or teaching book. So there are Mubdi' is a well-known commentary of this Al-Muqni', and also Sharh Kabir Ibn Abi Umar is also another commentary. This again, to reiterate that students who are in the beginning or in the first few years of the studies, they should start with basic level books and work their way tadrij and gradually work their way towards a higher and more detailed books. The one thing to note also regarding the Ibn Qudama and the Maqdisi family, their ihsan on this ummah as a family, generationally they produced ulama. Not one, many. So like Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi himself, his nephew Abdul Rahman ibn Qudama, the Ibn Qudama family is famous, al-Maqdisi, because they were based around Masjid al-Aqsa. Umdat al-Ahkam, Abdul Ghani al-Muqdisi, he wrote the Umdat al-Ahkam hadith collection from Bukhari Muslim, Bahauddin ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, and so forth. The 3rd figure in this stage is Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah rahmullah refers here to the grandfather, Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah. Al-Majd is, so you have, this is another family that has a huge impact in the madhab and kindness on the ummah, that the whole ummah benefits from. So you got the grandfather, Majduddin, then you have Abdul Halim, the son, And then you have the famous Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he's known amongst the Hanbali especially as Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah. The grandfather, however, is more of a impactful figure when it comes to the classic school, or his words have a huge weight in the madhab, and he's mentioned here. So the Ibn Taymiyyah here that it's referring to is the grandfather, and he wrote many books like Muwarrah and Muntaqa, hadith collections, and so forth. The fourth person in the fourth personality in the madhab in this stage, that is the elaboration and refinement of the school, is Ibn Muflih. You have Ibn Muflih, another family. This is another family who generationally produced scholars, and then his grandson or great-grandson, also known as Ibn Muflih. The great-grandfather, he wrote Al-Furu' and Adab al-Sharia and other books, and the great-grandson or great-grandson, he wrote Al-Mubdi', and which is a Sharh al-Muqni'. The last figure of this stage, and significant figure, is Al-Mardawi, and he wrote Insaf. And what the ulama say, that in this book is 100 books. And within this book, all the opinions, viewpoints, arguments, pretty much anything that's before this book, a person is free from all the other books of the madhab before that. You're talking about centuries and centuries of refinement and work. And this book is like an encyclopedic work with all the viewpoints, counter viewpoints within the school, and what is the most authentic view and strongest view according to the principles Imam Ahmad that should be practiced. Also the Imam Mardawi, he wrote a book on usul called Al-Tahrir, and he did a commentary of his own usul, book on the principles or Islamic legal theory, called Tahbir. So that's the second stage of the school. The third stage, or the latter stage of the madhab, where the madhab is settled, and it's the final touches on the school. No major shifts can be made after this. It doesn't mean that the madhab ends there. The madhab still exists today. There are Hanbalis today and the Shafi'is. It's just that there's nothing really much more to say, except that when a new masala comes, research is done, you have 1,000 years of scholarship to go through, and you'll find 99.9 very easily the answer will be found. So there's no point, as I say, to reinvent the wheel, right? So you have 1,000 years of scholarship to work with, and then if a new issue comes in the light of that 1,000 years of scholarship, and alhamdulillah for the last 200, 300 years, especially in the last 130 years, a lot of significant changes, developments happen in the world. But alhamdulillah, all of these schools have managed to produce an answer and guidance for the ummah, despite the rapid developments. So in this last stage, the first person is Musa al-Hajjawi, and he wrote Al-Iqna'. And Imam Buhuti did a commentary on this. And this Iqna' is considered the longest matan. The matan is like a compact text. So it's the longest compact text, meaning that it will have a lot of original masail, but it's like the matan is just like the basic text of the mazhab. No details are there, but this is the most longest compacted text of the madhab. And he also wrote a very important book called Zad al-Mustaqni', which Imam al-Buhuti rahimahullah also commented on. Imam Mansur bin Yunus al-Buhuti from Egypt, al-Hajjawi was from Syria, from Sham, and Mansur bin Yunus al-Buhuti was from Egypt. You'll find that in the later the Hanbali school centers around too. Although historically, if you see the madahib, you have the Khurasani school in the various madahib, they'll concentrate in different parts of the world. You see the Maliki madhab in Spain, which no longer exist. The historical Spain, Andalus. So by this time, the madhab is concentrated in two areas. One is in Sham. Sham is, of course, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, and Jordan, this region, and Egypt. These are two. And also, very importantly, the Najd, which is in the central Arabia. So these three places became sort of the key focal area for study, and many imams in the last several hundred years, this is where, when you study the Hanbali mazhab, these are the places to be. So the second person in this stage So just his book, Az-Zad al-Mustaqni', is a very extremely important, Imam Hajjabi, the first person in this category, Mansur ibn Yunus Buhuti al-Sharq al-Arud al-Murbi', which is a standard textbook taught in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the Islamic universities. This is pretty much nearly every university in fiqh teaches this book. It is also the guide, it's a book for the judges as well, that in it is the fiqh that the judges need. In terms of this book, also footnotes were written on this. Abdurrahman Qasim Najdi, Ibn Feroz, and other imams, big imams, and in the recent era, commentaries have been written by other contemporary ulama like Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, Shaykh Salih Fawzan, Faisal Mubarak, Shaykh Salih Balayhi, and others. So this is a book that a lot of khidmah has been done in, especially in the last 50 years as well, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The second person in this stage, Ibn Najjar al-Futuhi, from Egypt, and he wrote Al-Muntaha. So the first book is Iqna', and second is Muntaha. These two are if they agree, the ulama say if these two agree on a masala, that is, there's no other view to be taken in the madhab. When these two imams agree, because they come in the later stage, if they agree on something, that's the final word, the fatwas on that. Al-Imam Ibn Najjar al-Futuhi, he wrote books on usul. So remember we mentioned about tahrir. Mardawi wrote tahrir, and Ibn Najjar, he wrote usul al-fiqh on Islamic legal theory. He did a mukhtasar of that, summarized it. Then he did a commentary called Kawkab al-Munir, which is considered the best in the Hanbali school, the most important and most detailed and complete book on usul al-fiqh or Islamic legal theory. The third person in this stage is Muwarrah ibn Yusuf al-Karmi, also from Sham, and he wrote Ghayat al-Muntaha, in which he combined the first two imams' books, and also whenever they disagree on something, his decision is to be given preference. So when the two previous books, they are like agree, it's fine, but if they disagree, then this third book, Ghayat al-Muntaha, is the book. Each of these is encyclopedia, these three books, and in themselves, each one of them has a commentary. These three books are considered the most important books, Iqna', Al-Muntaha, and Ghayat al-Muntaha for the madhab. He also wrote, Muwarrah ibn Yusuf, rahimahullah, he also wrote another important book for the madhab called Dalil al-Talib. So Ghayat al-Muntaha is like the encyclopedic detail work, a reference book, while Dalil al-Talib is a primer text. Now, and has many commentaries like Manar al-Sabil and Nail al-Ma'arib and so forth. The ulama, of course, depending on which madrasa you go to, which ulama you study with, will give preference either to Dalil al-Talib or Zad al-Mustaqni' of al-Hajjawi. There are other books like Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat and other references for studying the madhab. However, so two books basically come at the end of the end, and there's Umda al-Buhuti and Akhsar ibn Balban, but some prefer Dalil and some prefer Zad. So the Imam said, well, Dalil is more, Dalil of Muwarrah ibn Yusuf is it's more organized, structured, and simple and easy to go through. But Zad may be less structured and organized, but it's got much more masail, much more vastness in the number of masail, despite its small size, the number of masail that it covers. So for those who want to do further research in the madhab in the school, if they want to go to the source of madhab, they'll have to go to something like Jami' or the contemporary Jami' that is written with all the views collected, everything from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, or the Ashab al-Masail, the books which are published, the Masail of the sons of Imam Ahmad or Imam al-Kawsaj and so forth, as mentioned. If they want to know the various views in the madhab, from the Imam and afterwards, the various differences of opinion and so forth, and what's preferred and how it's preferred and so forth, they will have to refer to Al-Insaf. If they want to know how to reply to the other madhabs, to counter their arguments like the Hanafi, Shafi and other schools and so forth, then they should refer to Ibn Qudam al-Maqdisi rahmahullah's Al-Mughni, or Mumti', Sharh Muqni' or Sharh Kabir, also Ibn al-Jawzi's Tahqiq, and Taliq of Qadi Abi Ya'la or Al-Intisar of Abdul Khattab and so forth. So as you can see, the madhab And all these madhahib, each one is, if one person can encompass them today, that'll be a miraculous thing. So these books, they're encyclopedias. This is within one school. To master one will be very fortunate in his life if he can actually have the energy and the time to master and be an expert in one, let alone more than one. We've all studied all the madhahib, alhamdulillah, by tawfiq of Allah, but mastery in a school to become the level of these imams of the past, that ability is seldomly found in this time and age. Despite we have some brilliant ulama, but the reality is that firstly the work is done, that the fiqh has been spelt, the mazhabs, the schools have been spelt out, and the work is now just to at least catch up to what they did, and then beyond that you can build up in dealing with the contemporary masail and so forth, and trying to understand what these imams, these geniuses of the past did, and make it relevant to our time. That is a work, but it's not. This type of work is, of course, it requires a lot of time and dedication. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him to have mercy on the souls. All the imams that we mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them of the best rewards on behalf of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our knowledge beneficial and with ikhlas for His sake, inshallah. Inshallah, next week we'll go into the idea of following a school or a madhab. What are the limits within that? What are the extremes in not following it and following it, and so forth. Inshallah, may Allah give us understanding and tawfiq to practice what we say in here. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.